Well, here we are again. And is this channel turning into a Jordan Peterson response channel? Yes, it is. Because it's fun. And because there's a doddering old man with brainworms who exists purely on viciousness and cruelty. So this is his Redux, his version 2.0 or 3, 4. I don't remember. I don't know how many videos he's made about this at this point. But he apparently is sitting there, ass mad, constantly writing scripts about how unfair it is and how trans is terrible and Elliot Page, and he just can't fucking help himself. And then he records them in his actually rather dapper 3-piece suit. I wish I had a suit like that. Actually, yeah. Oh yeah. Is it gonna play? God damn it! I made this soundboard for it and it never plays now. Play, you piece of shit.
Up yours, woke moralist.
There we go. Okay. All right. So this is called Butchers and Liars Reprise. All right. So the floor is yours, Jordan.
Hi, everybody. I want to read to you a piece I wrote recently
See?
called Butchers and Liars Reprise. Not much more than a week ago, I wrote a rather incendiary piece for the Telegraph about the mutilation of young people in the name of so-called trans rights. I also read it on my YouTube channel.
Yep.
And broadcast it, or soon will, on my podcast.
We watched
it.
The
Telegraph entitled it, "We are sacrificing our children on the altar of a brutal far-left ideology," which wasn't too bad, focusing as it did on the analogy I developed between our current practices and the literal sacrifice of children to false gods.
The literal sacrifice of children to false gods. Nothing hyperbolic about that, guys. Nothing at all.
I was somewhat more direct online, calling the piece Doctors and Psychotherapists, Butchers and Liars, which was about as blunt, let's say, as it was possible to be.
Hyperbolic and grossly inappropriate, but okay.
I was very nervous when writing, and even more when reading this piece. I was, after all, calling out the casual, pathetic, and cringing compliance of the psychotherapeutic community.
Okay, yeah. Pathetic and cringing is an entire established science that's been, studying this and developing this for decades. Not an old man whining online, okay?
And suggesting, again, somewhat bluntly, that the sadistic and greedy surgeons, masked by an appalling moral self-righteousness, should be jailed for practicing their fiendish and ghoulish craft.
This, I'm reminded of how anti-freedom and full-blown authoritarian Jordan Peterson has become. He was on Kyle Kalinske not that long ago, and he couldn't even answer the question of whether or not adults should be allowed to get a surgery if they fucking want it or not. That if Jordan would just arbitrarily make that illegal and remove personal freedom and choice, because he would. He's a fucking authoritarian.
On children. I have had my fair share of conflict publicly as a consequence of opposing the increasingly insistent encroachments of the radical, compassionate left. But I thought I might have finally signed my death warrant, culturally speaking, with the Butchers and Liars piece.
No, you're just proving yet again how much of a shit you are. It's so crazy. So when I'm recording these videos, the stream alerts are turned off, but I do want to read this one because this is great. From Zombie, Elliot Page has been living rent-free in his head for weeks, and he says stuff like literal sacrifice of children, but the left are the snowflakes. I agree. I 100% agree, and thank you very much. I appreciate that.
But no, almost all the comments on the YouTube posting, which has been watched by 1.4 million people and responded to by 15,000, were positive.
Yeah, you have a very huge fan base. You have an emotional support fan base, Jordan. We know. We're aware. I wouldn't be surprised if there's heavy comment moderation on there. I wouldn't be surprised, but whatever.
I removed some of the more purely asinine and juvenile criticisms.
Wow, no shit. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Are you censoring people? Are you taking their free speech, Jordan? What? I swear to fuck, man. Like, Jordan Peterson is the epitome of Oppression Olympics, the human being right now. It's amazing. Holy fuck.
Mostly of the "you're an anti-Semitic Nazi fascist, so you and the horse you rode in on" variety.
Isn't that valid speech? That's an opinion. You just don't like opinions? Yeah, my timing is apparently amazing. I'm starting to like, I'm brain to brain with Jordan now. I can pick up exactly what kind of stupid shit he's going to say.
And the YouTube comments algorithm removed some with similar intent. All things considered, however, positive. The same thing happened on the Telegraph website, where some 1,200 comments have been posted. This came as a genuine shock, not only to me, but to the editor I had been working with most closely at the Telegraph, who emailed me 2 messages.
Okay.
Quote, "I have had multiple conversations with fairly diehard liberals over the past few weeks that this issue is leading them to flip-flop on the trans debate. They are
That's bullshit. That's totally made up.
usually ending up going too far in response to the trans kids situation and end up aligning with the right-wing fundamentalist Christians on trans as a whole. This is what it looks like when we say that the left will end up eating itself."
I don't think so. I don't think so. I really don't. Because the thing is, if anybody's going to be swayed, and that this is basically a humble brag by Jordan that he's a good propagandist, if they are swayed, it's only because they don't understand the issue. They don't understand how really this isn't a huge issue, and it never has been. It affects a very tiny fucking minority of people, and it's those people who are in need of service and help. And they're making this into a holy war and using dehumanizing fucking tactics and language in order to have something to be angry about. Now, one of the interesting differences is between like him and Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh is just like, trans people are fucking disgusting, whereas Jordan is, trans people are victims. Both of them are disgusting and wrong, but whatever.
End quote. New quote, "It was remarkable the near universal support this piece received and how high its readership figures were and continue to be. We expected more of a backlash from the usual suspects. It just underlines how the views of a tiny minority have infected the mainstream. As always, evil flourishes when good men stand aside. It's all part of the same authoritarian mindset, and too many people being happy
You are an authoritarian. What the fuck?
to let others make decisions for them, a symptom of a general absence of critical thinking or feeling of powerlessness in Western populations at large."
You're talking about people having their decisions made for them, but you literally want to illegalize the access somebody has to a choice. What in the fuck?
I fear. Perhaps there's a follow-up piece to be written commenting on this before we publish the next one, remarking on how well received your essay was, and offering some solutions as to how to defeat the liars and butchers. I'm often struck by the yearning among readers for writers to offer solutions as well as insight. End quote.
This guy is gonna get somebody is gonna get like a fucking doctor killed. I swear to God. I swear to God, man, this is fucking crazy.
Why are we butchering children if no one thinks it's a good idea?
Who's butchering children? Children do not get gender reassignment surgery. That's not a thing. You have to be an adult before you can get gender reassignment or a mastectomy or feminization theory. Jesus, my brain is melting. Oh my God.
And I would ask those reading and watching, listening, to think very hard about that question.
If you're talking about butchering children, can we talk about circumcision? I'm okay with talking about that. I think we should absolutely not allow circumcision anymore because there's a problem with consent there. Baby can't consent. We could talk about that. I mean, I'm just saying, like,
And consider the mere fact that it has to be asked at all. Why are we butchering children if no one thinks it's a good idea?
nobody is butchering children except for foreskins for religious purposes. So,
Well, there's a financial moral hazard at hand. Each so-called trans kid is a veritable lifetime gold mine for the pharmaceutical industry.
not true.
All those hormones and then all the drugs necessary to deal with the oft catastrophic physical and psychological consequences of the surgery.
And this is another one too. Not everybody who's trans gets surgery. I don't even think the majority of people who are trans end up getting gender reassignment surgery. I don't think so. For a lot of trans people, just simply being able to express themselves is enough to have that kind of life that they want. They don't necessarily need to have any kind of surgery. Some only get some surgery. Some don't go through with the full reassignment. Like, what the fuck? It's not like this is, and none of them are children. None of them are children. All of this is hysteria, and it's propaganda. And this is why I think he's going to get somebody fucking killed, because he's going to brainwash people into thinking that children are getting fucking chopped up by doctors. And then you're going to get some jackasses all fucking strung out and go and kill a fucking doctor over this kind of shit. And it's all based on a lie.
Then there's an issue, I believe, of a genuine sadism combined in some cases with personality disorder of a very pathological sort. There are always going to be a small percentage of medical personnel, including surgeons, who have a dark triad personality: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy.
So we just have to now paint any doctors that deal with any of this as supervillains. Okay.
Just like there are in every other profession. But nurses, psychiatrists, and most of all surgeons with those characteristics are in a prime position, first, to hurt others to gratify their own hellish impulses, and second,
I would say that Jordan Peterson, by the very means of his rhetoric that he's engaging in right now, does more harm collectively and the way that he dehumanizes people than any doctor currently in existence. No, I 100% believe that, purely because of the hate that he spews.
to do plenty of damage merely by being narcissistic. Then there's the issue of the mob. For at least a decade now, anyone who spoke out against any manifestation of this modern, hyper-compassionate constellation we know as woke idiocy was very
That woke doesn't mean anything.
likely to be vilified, ostracized, and shamed, to be threatened seriously on the employment front, to be tarred and feathered and transported out of town on a rail.
Did that happen to you, or are you now massively, massively wealthy because of what you've done and the propaganda that you spew? I don't really think you can play a victim in this, Jordan. I'm sorry. This idea that people's lives were ruined by this kind of shit is totally divided along the lines of class and popularity and celebrity. And you don't understand because you are not in a position where you have actually suffered for this. You have benefited immensely.
I have conversed in detail and length with at least 100 people to whom this has happened, and it's no joke. I would consider it roughly equivalent to being cursed with a serious illness. It hurts people a lot, as well as constituting a genuine threat to employment and personal safety.
Yeah, I doubt it. If the people that you talk to are in the same fucking grift as you. Maybe you talk to some people that you have convinced you are on their side, and you're just like them actually. Now maybe this did happen, in which I would say all they have to do is don't be a shithead and mind their own fucking business. That's all you have to do.
This is particularly true of conscientious, reliable, dutiful, hardworking people who are also prone to guilt and who can be manipulated by the dark triad types because of their moral nature.
Dark triad types, okay.
And social media rewards this. Nothing goes viral like an accusation. Nothing can make a nobody somebody like the accurate delivery of a poisoned dart.
Oh my fucking God. Holy shit. It's like this dude needs to look in the fucking mirror. Oh my god.
And if you add a bit of cowardice to the mix, and the willingness, even on the part of so-called mental health professionals, to take the easy short-term pathway forward, you have the makings of a sociological disaster.
Ah.
The issue of the mob and its amplification by social media is further complicated by the disproportionate potential impact thereby generated of a tiny minority. I asked recently the journalist Andy No, a very brave
Oh, Andy fucking No. First of all, Andy No is not a fucking journalist. He's a propagandist, and he's a liar, and he's a self-serving piece of shit. I know, because I used to work for him in real life. Not everybody knows that, but yeah, I was employed by Andy No. I only did, I think, three jobs running videography for him. And Andy No is a fucking fake. He's a fraud, and he's a piece of shit. So, but yeah, what did you talk to Mr. Andy No about?
person, Asian and gay, for those of you who care,
No, nobody should care. That's oppression Olympics and identity politics. Shut the fuck up.
soft-spoken and gentle, but with a spine of steel. And a good thing, too, because Mr. No has been beat half to death 3 times by the...
Never. He has never been beaten half to death. Not even fucking close. Closest he got was he got a head injury, and he claimed he had a brain injury. But he refused to show any, and I mean any, of his actual release papers. Never proved it. He stayed in the hospital for, I think it was like 8 to 9 hours, whereas what he was claiming he suffered would have required a full day's observation. So anywhere from 18 to 24 hours he would have had to be in there. Also kind of, talks about how he probably faked all of that too. No, that's bullshit. You know what Andy No did do, though, is he participated in and helped in the organization of an ambush by far-right extremists that went and assaulted a fucking bar where a bunch of his friends beat the shit out of people, one of which was a woman who got a baton hit on the back of her neck, broke her neck, and Andy No doxed her while she was in the hospital. But go on, your brave friend Andy fucking No.
The compassionate radicals. How many active cells might be operating in the U.S., and how many full-time employees, so to speak, might make up the committed core personnel of those cells? He estimated 40 and 20. 40 times 20 is 800. 800 people in a population of 320 million.
That's not a lot. So what's the fucking problem?
That's 1 in 400,000.
There's a lot more right-wing extremists than that. Holy shit. Holy shit.
That's practically zero.
Yeah.
But that's what the moderate Democrat types, skeptical of the very existence of Antifa, note essentially when expressing their doubts about the dangers of the radical fringe.
Yeah. So they're accurately describing how there's not really a whole lot. Okay, so what? So what's the fucking problem?
That's the wrong conclusion. What's the proper moral of the story? A very tiny minority, left unchecked, can exert a disproportionate and deadly influence on an entire society.
What did they do? What has Antifa done to society? Can anybody answer me that? Like, I'm very fucking confused. I'm very confused about what he's trying to make, what argument he's trying to make here. Like, Antifa did what? Did what?
It was hardly any communists, after all, who overthrew the Tsarist regime in Russia and instituted the many decades of vicious horror that characterized the Soviet world.
There were a lot more communists back then than there are from what you just described on Antifa. Also, their ideas were very popular at the time. This is this is very strange. Has he talked about his grandma dream? Oh, Jordan's dream about his grandmother rubbing her pubes on his face? No, he hasn't talked about that yet. I don't know if we're gonna be able to finish this whole video. I don't know, man. I'm gonna try.
All societies struggle with the problem of free riders, narcissists, Machiavellians, and criminals.
Oh, I see. So we need to we need to jail the writers and the Machiavelli. This is sounding very familiar to something This is sounding a little familiar with something 80 years ago. Oh, you guys didn't hear about? Oh yeah, he once told this dream where his grandmother like rubbed her pubes on his face. It was fucking bizarre.
All societies struggle to control those who build false, inflated reputations, who are willing to sacrifice others to their own selfish and narrow short-term interests.
That's
Who
you.
will rob and steal to attain. And
That's you. That's you. That's fucking you, dude.
worst of all, who will burn everything to the ground just to gain the opportunity to dance demonically in the resultant ashes.
Based.
Then there's some genuine confusion. Sex and gender are different if you regard gender, an appallingly ill-defined term. People do differ widely in their temperament. And there is a rather large percentage of women who have a masculine temperament, and vice versa.
Sure.
And also a large number of intrinsically creative people who have more mutable identities.
Okay.
This cross-sex temperamental proclivity has long been noted. There are, and have always been, tomboys and more feminine girls. My personality has many feminine features. I am agreeable, compassionate / polite, and have rather high levels of negative emotion.
You are not agreeable, nor are you polite. You're a fucking pretentious dickbag. But also, this is some very, very strange shit. Okay, all right. These are my feminine traits, which you don't have any of. But okay, whatever, dude. Whatever. It's not. I wouldn't say that any of these traits are necessarily masculine or feminine. The traits that Jordan is exhibiting right now, sociologically speaking, are shithead. I'm sorry, man.
Leading me, for example, to
Oh, yeah. Compassionate is a female trait? Man, how many women have you met?
cry too easily. This did not at all mean that I was born in the wrong body, whatever that means, or that I was really a woman.
So you don't.
There's also confusion
So you don't understand what it means to feel like you're trans. That's okay. We know that. We get that. We've understood that.
about the meaning of the term identity. Someone's identity is a very complex phenomenon. Some of that identity is, by necessity, socially negotiated.
Sure.
In a very basic sense, identity is the pattern of perception, assumption, and action an individual manifests while interacting with others.
No, there's more to it than that. There's more to it. There are biological predispositions. You can argue that is to some degree mutable as well, and you'd be right. There is being informed by your lived experiences and your memories, the way in which you associate those to the surrounding world. I mean, to say that it is very complicated, you can't then just be like, and it's basically a mixture of these three things. Like, no.
That is not all of what makes up identity, but it's not a bad start.
Fuck, you said that.
Identity
Jesus
is
Christ.
certainly not merely what someone feels from moment to moment.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah. No, actually, it is. Totally is. Yeah. Identity is complicated. Identity is totally complicated. But the true form of your own identity, that in which you are, is exactly how you feel. It is. That might not be your larger metaphysical reality or identity as far as its interaction with the world externally. But your internal identity is exactly how you feel. That is what it is. What that's made up of is what's complicated. But the very concept of it, yeah, bro, sure is.
First of all, that's a very bad measurement. And psychologists in particular, who have fallen pathetically prey to the woke, mob-enforced propaganda, once knew this. Second, what the...
Wait, dude, so what, you want to measure personality? Shut the fuck up. Why? What the fuck?
does feel mean? Exactly. And by exactly, I mean precisely, validly, reliably, scientifically.
Do you want to, like, measure neurotransmitters to be able to measure feeling? Like, I'm not really sure what the utility is in this. This is strange.
Third, it is clear, as the developmental psychologist Jean Piaget took great pains to establish that identity is and must be negotiated with others. And that means
That's social identity, not internalized identity.
know what you feel moment to moment is not your identity and can't be if you want to get along with others and shouldn't be if you want to live without undue conflict. And
I swear to God, this is so. Okay, he knows better, but I think he has rotted his brain with that chemically induced coma or something, or all the drugs. I don't know, to the point where he is either forgotten or is willing to just toss this all aside. But he knows that this is not that simple. You can't just simply conflate the idea of self-identification versus the way in which you then have to interpret and interact with the world. Yeah, there's a difference there. There is a difference. You can't just simply be and construct yourself to be a perfect fit into society. That is ridiculous. And he knows that too, because he is at ends with society as well. He himself is not trying to conform to society. He wants society to conform to him. So it's weird to me.
and misery. There are other reasons for our cowardice and mendacity and silence, but that's not a bad start.
Okay.
What should be done? Here's a concrete proposal. Are you listening, classic liberals? Are you listening, small c conservatives?
Fucking classical liberal means conservative, but okay, go ahead.
How about legislation absolutely ensuring the right of transitioned minors to sue their counselors and physicians when they attain legal adulthood? And even
Okay. First of all, we have to make sure we remember no kids are getting surgery. They're getting counseling, maybe puberty blockers. That's it. Okay?
more firmly, how about making the medical conversion of boys into girls and girls into boys illegal?
If we're talking about children, it already is. If you're talking about for adults, it's none of your fucking business what people do with their bodies. That's an authoritarian take, and you should leave people alone. Let them do whatever the fuck they want to do.
We don't allow minors to get tattoos. They can't drink or drive or both. They can't vote. And plenty of them are confused enough and hurt enough and starved for attention enough to drift into the hands of the villainous woke propagandists to allow the butchers to cut off their breasts and their balls.
No, because they're children, and you can't do that. That is illegal, Jordan. This whole thing is predicated on him not actually knowing what the law is. This is fucking insane. This is so embarrassing.
We have already passed legislation in much of the Western world outlawing so-called conversion therapy, which was a pseudo-problem to begin with because it was virtually never happening.
It was happening more often than fucking sex reassignment surgery. Yeah. It was happening way more often than sex reassignment. What are you fucking talking about? What the fuck? And that targeted children. Children! That actually was targeting children. Whereas this is not. Oh my fucking God. Hey, what's up, Sarah?
Except among more explicitly fundamentalist counselors who were sporadically attempting to remediate, is there a more politically correct word, homosexuality. I don't know if anyone noticed, but the most severe form of conversion therapy is precisely the double mastectomies, removal of ovaries, uteri, and testes, and hormonal transformation of hapless children.
Again, children do not get sex reassignment surgery. They are children. They cannot. This whole argument is totally fucking invalidated because you don't know what you're talking about.
So now a counselor, a physician, or social worker risks his or her license, reputation, and livelihood if she or he dares talk to a minor about identity. But a butcher masquerading as a benevolent surgeon can castrate with impunity and be celebrated as a moral paragon.
Nobody does that. Nobody does that. No, I don't know any names of any doctors that do sex reassignment. I've never heard of it. Never heard of their names because they're not They're not celebrated. This is like a weird headcanon. This is so fucking weird. Like, he's afraid of this culture that just does not exist. It's so fucking bizarre.
How about we stop doing this? It's wrong.
No.
Do I really have to say this?
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
not
really.
just wrong.
Yeah.
It's Auschwitz and Gulag level wrong.
Godwin's Law. Here we go. Yeah. Gotta make it all about the Nazis. It's like the Nazis that were cutting up little kids. But we're not. Unless you talk about circumcision, which you don't, because you don't actually care. This is all political. And because you're afraid, because you're a terrified old man.
It's Nazi medical experiment level wrong.
That isn't happening.
It's Unit 731 level wrong. And I'll put a trigger warning on that. Look up Unit 731 at your extreme peril. And
Yeah.
I'm dead serious about that.
Oh.
I might also touch on something else in closing before offering my practical solutions. I've been asking for years, and it's a genuine question and difficult to answer with sufficient.
That's a good point. Hating on trans is more Nazis than anything he's accusing people of. Well, he's accusing people of doing something that isn't actually even fucking happening. But yeah, I mean, if he invoked Godwin, so it's open season, right? Yeah, dude, 100%. Trans people were 100% fucking targeted by Nazis. Oh yeah. Pretty much any time like a dictatorship came about, some overwhelmingly oppressive, brutal, authoritarian regime, they always end up targeting people who are the most vulnerable, and that includes people who are trans. People are trans, people are gay, minorities, intellectuals, artists, things like that. He even earlier in this, he was saying how bad in the intellectuals, the writers, and blah blah blah. And now he's like casting all this doubt on doctors and shit. I mean, this is fucking sketch, dude. Sketch as fuck.
Precision. I've often posed the question to moderate leftists, even to true liberals. When does the left go too far?
Never. Doesn't exist.
The right goes too far when it becomes ethnocentric, nationalist, or racist. That was established, I would say, by William F. Buckley in the late 60s, and that is stuck. I personally believe that the left goes too far when it advocates for equity, or even uses the term, which is the damnable and impossible to attain and accusatory attempt to establish equality of outcome.
Why? It's one of those things that's like so fucking ridiculous, because like you can have a concept that you think is good to strive for and try and implement ways in which people have a broader chance of being able to prosper, regardless of their socioeconomic status when they were growing up, whether they have a happy home or not. Making these things so people, regardless of whether or not where they have to come from, might still have the best chances to have an equal playing field to everyone else is a good thing. It's a good thing. But then again, as I've already shown in previous Jordan Peterson responses, he's not really interested in that. He's interested in philosopher king, classist style elitism. That's what he's into. He thinks that people should stay in their lane based on their station in life. He totally does. He's a fucking authoritarian.
But that seems to be too subtle a point for people, particularly on the left, to grasp. I say this without undue rancor. It certainly doesn't have the emotional weight, say, of objecting to lynching. The moderate Democrats with whom I have discussed this at length inevitably reject my suggestion. They, the radicals, just mean equality of opportunity.
Yeah.
No, they don't. That's why, folks, they use a different word. But even if some radicals do mean only that, the system of ideas that animates them knows better.
I think equity is totally fine if we talk about some very basic things. Absolutely. I think that if you, do your due diligence to live in your society, to grow and to learn and to become a basic citizen, that we should all inevitably have the same equal outcomes for basic human rights. I think that everybody should be able to be fed. They should have a place to live. They should have access to health care and support structures. And what they do beyond that to improve themselves, sure, go do whatever the fuck you want. But like, you could say that that's equality. And no, I think it is equity. I think it is equity that there are some things that we should establish because we have the capacity to, that we can establish that everybody has access to and is that baseline. It's not just once you're born, this is what you get, good fucking luck, kid, you know? I think it is establishing a basic standard of living as a human right because we are the most powerful country in the fucking world and we have the money to do it, but we don't do it because we have this fucking Stockholm syndrome with these ridiculous notions of conservatism and struggle and strife and pain and suffering. It's ridiculous. It's fucking stupid.
The spirit that animates the system works to implement the forceful demolition of all differences of rank, competence, ability, and wealth.
No, it doesn't.
And we've seen where that leads, haven't we? Or is 100 million corpses not enough?
Oh, he's talking about communism. You can have equity without communism. You can have a socialist approach to basic fundamentals of life and then still engage in a capitalist notion of improvement and innovation. You can do these things. You can. But if you just like automatically be like, it's communism, then there's no point in really talking to you any further about it because you're not going to listen.
I was recently in Albania. Go to Albania, you despicable neo-communist moralizers, and see if you dare to continue your propagandizing and self-aggrandizement. Up yours, woke moralists.
Yeah, boo.
Here, then, is something a bit more solid than when they promote equity as an answer to the question, when does the left go too far? When it insists that the surgical mutilation of children has become a moral necessity.
It doesn't happen. It's not a thing that's real, Jordan. You take your meds. Go take a nap.
When it insists that believing that is a sign of moral virtue. When it insists
is that what happened in Albania?
Opposing such action is unethical or downright criminal.
Who has been arrested for saying that they don't like trans anything? Who in this fucking country?
Anyone care to dispute
yes.
any of that?
All of it. It's so easy.
Practical solutions.
Holy shit.
Psychologists. Stop cowering in the woodwork.
They're not cowering in the woodwork. They're doing their fucking jobs, you dipshit.
Announce that you will abide by the dictates of valid and reliable measurement that your profession so rightly insists upon.
They do. That's called doing their job. They all just disagree with you. You're just crying because you don't agree with what everybody else in your profession that deals in this issue all agree on. You know, the experts.
Still on the statutes governing your behavior as clinicians and researchers. Drop your idiot and hypocritical adherence to this idiot and pathological notion of feeling. Physicians.
That's the whole entire basis of psychology is feeling. What the fuck are you talking about? Holy shit.
Adhere to the Hippocratic Oath. Stop your colleagues from butchering children.
I mean, like even neuroscience, even the neuroscience aspect of psychology deals with the biological. It deals with the meats. It deals with the fucking neurotransmitters. But all of that translates, all aside from motor neurons and your basic body's sympathetic and parasympathetic systems and shit. Everything after that, when you're talking about your process of thought, your prefrontal cortex, that all comes down to feeling. I'm sorry. Like, what the fuck, man? I just had to clarify because I know somebody's going to be like, well, actually. No.
And lobby for legal responsibility to be returned to or imposed upon those who dare continue. Political leaders, take the legislative steps necessary to ban the surgical conversion of children.
Because I don't like it. Wah.
And restore to the...
Wait, they just said children again. It does not happen. It does not happen. He's yammering for something to happen that has not happened.
The clinical and counseling professions, the right to ask questions about identity. It's on you, folks. particularly you in those three groups: psychologists, physicians, politicians. Every castrated child, every
None. They don't exist. I would really like for him to actually talk about circumcision. That'd be great. But then he might have to speak ill of his newfound fandom, which is Christianity.
young woman made artificially barren, every budding beauty,
Gross. What the fuck?
so ashamed of her breasts that she lets a Machiavellian psychopath cut them off.
He's gonna cry again.
Have some courage.
He's gonna cry over something that doesn't even exist. Jesus Christ. Now I'm feeling sad.
And some fortitude. Man the barricades and keep the degenerates away from the children.
Fucking Christ, man. I want to get like when he lunges. There we go. There we go. That's fucking great. This is honestly just so mind blowing to me. I am in awe. I am awed. I am awed that he would dedicate so much of his brain and his life at this point to a thing that he is convinced is happening and does not fucking happen. And the thing is, and this is really what it comes down to. I'm sure if anybody who's watching this video in the future is a Jordan Peterson fan, they probably turned this off well before now. Well before now. But just in case you aren't, to explain what's happening, this is because he is afraid and because he hates. None of this is actually logical. None of this has anything to do with a moral stand for the sake of the children, because if he actually cared about the kids, he would have learned by now that it's not happening, that there is no surgical intervention happening with kids. Sorry. Or he does know, and he's using them as a prop. He does not care. He doesn't care about the kids. He doesn't care. He won't dedicate the actual legitimate energy to accurately and thoroughly advocate for what he claims he is. Instead, this is performative because this is hate and it's fear. This man is afraid of trans people because they're different. That's it. That's it. There's no great mystery to unravel with Jordan Peterson. There is no mountain to climb to understand his intellectual fucking position on this matter. It comes down to one very pathetic fact. We're watching an old man who is very scared try and convince you why you too should be afraid.